Afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to Global Atheist News Roundup, dateline 9th of November 2024. This is the show that gives you the news on how religions have impacted humanity over the last 7 days. This week's headlines. Mosab Hassan Yousef, the son of one of the Hamas co-founders, explains the Palestinian practice of child sacrifices for Jihad. The trial begins over the beheading of a teacher who showed Prophet Muhammad cartoon. An entire Lebanese village of Hezbollah terror structures was destroyed. The Swiss burqa ban is to take effect from 2025. A woman strips to her underwear outside an Iranian university. The Anglican Church covered up abhorrent abuse, a report finds. Amsterdam Mayor, the King and the Prime Minister of the Netherlands all condemn hit-and-run attacks on Israeli football supporters. Baroness Foster DBE stands up in the House of Lords and addresses the threat of terrorism on the streets of the UK, the antisemitism and the hate marches. And Andrew Doyle from GB News does his stand-up routine about Hamas. Here is the news in detail. We've featured Mosab Hassan Yousef in previous news editions. Here he is again on the ideology of Islam. See this video.
The abuse process begins at a very early age by indoctrination, brainwashing, forcing the children to think as rebels, and to adapt to violence. And this is just one form of the child abuse in the Middle Eastern Muslim culture. What Hamas is doing is a crime against the children. It does not end by indoctrination. Hamas recruited children for terror activities. And not to forget that some children actually were forced to wear a suicide belt, explosive belt, and they used them as suicide bombers at some point. Hamas won't hesitate to use children as human shields. This is what we are witnessing in Gaza now. Sacrificing children as part of religious ideology. And this is not a new thing. If we look back during the Iranian war, the Ayatollah used thousands of children to sweep minefields, kamikaze style. So these people are willing to sacrifice not only one generation, but many generations for political gain. It's not secret, but I think many don't understand or can actually conceive the evil practice of sacrificing children.
Now, throughout this war, we have seen Hamas use psychological warfare to manipulate the West and even the Israeli public. How can Israel fight back effectively against this without stooping to that level?
You know, Hamas dragged Israel into a very dirty war. This is their strategy. It is not that Hamas didn't know what would happen after committing a genocide on October 7 and kidnapping many hostages. They knew that Israel would retaliate. In the meantime, they booby-trapped schools, hospitals, streets, and they have been digging tunnels for many years beneath one of the most populated areas on Earth. So Hamas wanted many civilians to die. They wanted the children to die. And this was their strategy to bring the West to its knees. All those who believe in civilization, this has been a challenge to all the values of the West. And Hamas knew that they would bring the globe to a crisis where
8 people have gone on trial in Paris accused of encouraging the killer of Samuel Paty, the teacher who was beheaded on the street outside his school 4 years ago. Abdullah Anzarov, the young man of Chechen origin who wielded the knife, is dead, shot by police in the minutes after his attack. So this trial is less about the murder itself and more about the circumstances that led to it. Over 7 weeks, the court will hear how a 13-year-old schoolgirl's lie spun out of control, thanks to social media, triggering an international hate campaign and inspiring a lone mission of vengeance from a self-styled defender of Islam. On trial are 2 men accused of identifying Mr. Paty as a blasphemer over the internet, 2 friends of Anzarov who allegedly gave him logistical help, and 4 others who offered support on chat lines. Mr. Paty's murder horrified and petrified France. He was a conscientious and much liked history teacher in a secondary school in Conflans-Sainte-Honorine in the prosperous western suburbs of Paris. On the 6th of October 2020, he gave a lesson on freedom of speech, the same lesson he had given several times before to a class of young teenagers. Drawing on the tragically famous episode of Charlie Hebdo magazine, how publication of cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad had led to the 2015 murder of most of its staff, he briefly showed an example of the cartoons. Before doing so, he recommended that those who feared being offended should avert their eyes. The next day, one of his pupils, a 13-year-old girl, was asked by her father why she was not going to school. She told him she had been disciplined because she dared to stand up to Monsieur Paty when he told Muslims to leave the class so he could show a naked picture of the Prophet. It was a triple lie. Monsieur Paty had not told Muslims to leave the class. The girl had been disciplined, but not for the reason she said. She had not even been in the room on the day Monsieur Paty gave the lesson on freedom of speech. But with the internet descended on its way, the lie spread and spread. First, the girl's father, Brahim Chinina, made her repeat the claim on videos, which he posted on Facebook, naming the teacher. Then a local Islamist, Abdelhakim Sefriwi, created a 10-minute online video entitled Islam and the Prophet Insulted in a Public College. Within a couple of days, the school was inundated with threats and messages of hate from around the world. Paty told colleagues that he was living through difficult times because of the campaign against him. Meanwhile, the denunciation had reached the attention of an 18-year-old Chechen refugee living in Rouen, 50 miles to the west. Anzarov made an initial note on his telephone that read, "A teacher has shown his class a picture of the messenger of Allah naked." Anzarov then sought the help of 2 friends, who are now on trial. One of them was allegedly present when he bought a knife in a Rouen shop. The other helped him buy 2 replica pistols on the 16th of October, the day of the attack, and then drove him to the school. The 4 last defendants, including 1 woman, are people with whom Anzarov conversed on Snapchat and Twitter, and who allegedly offered him encouragement. The defendants admit their connection to the case, but they contest the charges of terrorist association or complicity to commit terrorist murder, saying they will argue that although they publicly condemned Monsieur Petit, they never called for his murder. Israel is militarily very powerful. See this video of an entire Lebanese village of Hezbollah terror structures being destroyed simultaneously. A contentious Swiss prohibition on facial coverings in public spaces, widely known as the burqa ban, will take effect on January the 1st next year, the government said on Wednesday. It was narrowly passed in a 2021 referendum and has been condemned by Muslim associations, and the measure was launched by the same group that organised a 2009 ban on new minarets. The governing Federal Council said in a statement it had fixed the start of the ban for January the 1st, and that anyone who unlawfully flouts it faces a fine of up to 1,000 Swiss francs. That's 1,144 American dollars. Social media videos show a student walking around outside the Islamic Azad University in Tehran, Iran, stripped to her underwear. According to students and activist groups from the university, the woman was protesting Iran's strict Islamic dress code. A student social media channel, Amir Kabir Newsletter, says members of an Iranian volunteer paramilitary group ripped the woman's headscarf and clothes, whereas state-run Fars news agency says she took off her clothes after security personnel calmly talked to her about flouting the dress code. The university spokesperson said the woman was suffering from mental health issues. See this video.
A woman in Iran has been detained after stripping down to her underwear outside her university in the country's capital, Tehran. According to students and activist groups, the woman was protesting the abusive enforcement of Iran's strict Islamic dress code. An Iranian student social media channel has reported that the woman had faced harassment by members of the Basij, an Iranian volunteer and paramilitary group on the Azad University campus, adding that members of the force had ripped her headscarf off and tore her clothes. In this video, the student is shown being bundled into a car by a group of men in what human rights group Amnesty International has described as a violent arrest. A police report cited by a university spokesperson claims the woman was under severe mental pressure and had a mental disorder. However, CNN has not been able to independently establish the circumstances behind the incident. In Iran, women can be subjected to harsh punishment for not wearing the hijab or headscarf in public. In recent years, the Iranian regime has faced backlash for the stringent and often violent enforcement of these regulations by its so-called morality police. In 2022, protests erupted across the globe after 22-year-old Mahsa Jina Amini was violently arrested for allegedly wearing her hijab incorrectly. She later died while in police custody. Iranian officials claim she suffered a heart attack. This latest incident has once again sparked concern for the safety and freedom of women in Iran. Amnesty International has called for the immediate and unconditional release of the Azad University student and is demanding she be given access to her family and lawyer.
A British barrister's horrific and violent abuse of more than 100 children and young men was covered up within the Church of England for decades, according to the conclusion of a damning report. John Smythe, QC, is believed to be the most prolific serial abuser to be associated with the Church of England, a long-awaited independent review found. Smythe, QC, who died, aged 77 in Cape Town in 2018, was accused of attacking boys at his Winchester home, who he had met at Christian summer camp in Dorset during the 1970s and 1980s. On publication of the findings, the Archbishop of Canterbury apologised again to victims and said Smythe's abuse had manipulated Christian truth to justify his evil acts. Smythe has also worked as a barrister representing morality campaigner Mary Whitehouse, whilst he ran the camps for young evangelical Christians. Reports of his physical abuse of boys were revealed in an investigation by Channel 4 News in February 2017. The investigation came after a report by the Iwerne Trust in 1982, which was not made public until 2016. Smythe was confronted about his conduct after the report, compiled by Reverend Mark Ruston and Reverend David Fletcher. It found Smythe identified pupils from leading public schools, including Winchester College, and took them to his home near Winchester, where he carried out lashings with a garden cane in his shed. It said 8 of the boys received a total of 14,000 lashes, while 2 more received 8,000 strokes between them over 3 years. After the report was published on Thursday, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, said the pain Smythe's victims endured was unimaginable. In the statement, Mr. Welby said, "I'm so sorry that in places where these young men and boys should have felt safe and where they should have experienced God's love for them, were subjected to physical, sexual, psychological and spiritual abuse." Mr. Welby said he had not been aware of Smythe's brutality before 2013, but said, "Nevertheless, the review is clear that I personally failed to ensure that after the disclosure in 2013, the awful tragedy was energetically investigated." On Thursday evening, Mr. Welby told Channel 4 News that he considered resigning over the scandal, but had decided to remain. The Dutch king says Jewish people must feel safe in the Netherlands after violent attacks against Israeli football fans in the centre of Amsterdam. Willem-Alexander said, "Our history has taught us how intimidation goes from bad to worse," adding that the country could not ignore anti-Semitic behaviour. Youths on scooters had crisscrossed the Dutch capital in hit-and-run attacks on Maccabi Tel Aviv supporters who were visiting Amsterdam for a Europa League match, authorities said. 5 people were treated in hospital and others suffered minor injuries. At least 62 people have been arrested. Amsterdam's mayor, Femke Halsema, told a press conference on Friday, "My heart goes out to the victims and to their families here and in Israel." Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof flew back early from a summit of EU leaders in Budapest, where he said he had been following developments with horror. The perpetrators will be tracked down and prosecuted, he promised. The violence on Thursday night was condemned by leaders across Europe, the US and Israel. For many, it was especially shocking coming on the eve of commemorations marking Kristallnacht, the 1938 Nazi pogroms against German Jews. 3/4 of Jewish people in the Netherlands were murdered during the Holocaust in World War II. The king alluded to that history, saying, "Jews must feel safe in the Netherlands, everywhere and at all times. We put our arms around them and will not let them go." US President Joe Biden said the attacks echo dark moments in history when Jews were persecuted. Baroness Foster DBE stands up in the House of Lords and addresses the threat of terrorism on the streets of the UK and the antisemitism and hate marches. Andrew Doyle from GB News has a stand-up routine about Hamas. See this video.
Did you see the other day, a couple of days ago, a man got arrested for carrying a sign that said Hamas are terrorists? Did you see that? Now, now, he got arrested for that because that is just blatant disinformation, isn't it? That's, Hamas are not, I know Hamas are not terrorists. I checked it on the BBC fact check site. So I know that they're definitely not. But of course, you know, it's very difficult at the moment because we saw these protests. We're having them every weekend. It's really fucking up my shopping, you know. And there was that moment where Hizb ut-Tahrir, which is a group that is outlawed in most Arab countries, Hizb ut-Tahrir was standing there calling for jihad. Now, to be fair on the Met Police, they acted very swiftly, didn't they? They put a tweet out, didn't they? They put a tweet out, and it said, the word jihad has a number of meanings. And it does, you know, we assume that jihad means holy war, but it's more of a kind of yoga retreat, you know? It's more of like, it's very peaceful. I went for a jihad at my local spa, and I had this thing called an intifada. It's, you know, it's a face wash. It's a kind of, it's with tea tree and lavender oil, that kind of stuff. You know, it's at the river to the sea beauty experience.
Following this news, Free Thought Hour's guest this week is Dean Kruger. He is an admin for Atheist Republic South Africa. You can join Tercia and I chatting with him by text. This has been Global Atheist News. Please like, subscribe and share. Many thanks for watching.